I mean, what you guys did was, you guys submitted the foundation permit first and submitted the master building permit separately?
No, what we did, and the main challenge there was that during the time that we were constructing and right when we were getting ready to submit for permit, there was a building code change. So the building code changed in, I think it was July 1st of last year. So at the time, we had been designing the project and everything, and so what we did is we had to submit for a permit before the building code changed because you were grandfathered in. So we submitted for, we really officially submitted for a permit in June of that year.
Sorry, is you were or were not grandfathered in?
We were grandfathered in. But if you submit after that date, then your whole project has to be designed to the new code, okay? So we had submitted for permit, but at the same time, so was everybody else in the county, everybody else in the city.
Did you guys have, the Fort Lauderdale give you the option to do like a private provider so you can have them review?
No, they don't have expedited review, they don't have a private provider. We had a permit expediter who would kind of go back and forth and handle everything for us, but it took several meetings at the city. So when we submitted for permit, the same week that we submitted, there were 1,575 other building permit applications.
Wow.
So, we would go down and say, oh, are you reviewing or reviewing? They say, oh, we're so backed up. So we would request a meeting with the building department and say, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do to get this expedited? And they said, okay, well, you can get an early start permit. So while the building permit's getting reviewed, we submitted for that. We submitted, some underground plumbing plans, our foundation plans, site work, all that. So that allowed us to work for up to about 2 weeks. So then when that was over, so, to preface this, we never did any work that we weren't permitted to do, but this was a real challenge on this project. So after the 2 weeks went up, I would go down to the building department again and meet with the chief building inspector and say, what else can we do? And they would say, apply for a foundation permit. So we would submit our foundation plans, and they would review that in a couple of days. Then that would allow us 2 more weeks of work. So then I would go back after 2 weeks while the building permit was being reviewed and say, what else can we do? And they said, well, we'll allow you to build block up to a certain level. And so then we would do that. And this went on until finally, which I was happy that we were able to do this. We got the building official to, which I understand is unusual, to get every single reviewer in one room at the same time and review our plans. And then he actually took our plans, thankfully, and walked them around to each reviewer and got the sign off. And he said, I've never done this before. I've been working here 20 years. So it took a lot of cajoling, a lot of calls, a lot of emails, and that's one of the, in general, one of the challenges of being a project manager or a developer is that you really have to work very hard to get things done. You have to use different methods or try to convince people you have a goal and you have to try to convince people with other interests to get done what you need to get done. Yes?
How did you get the parking in the front of the building?
That's another interesting thing about this project. Are you saying because they don't want it?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is an overlay district, a federal highway overlay district in the city of Fort Lauderdale where you really, really see it being done downtown, where they want all the buildings pushed out to the front of the building.
This is far enough north.
Well, and that's to to promote pedestrians walking and whatnot. This was still a part of that district. However, it was far enough north, so that was kind of one of the advantages that we had. That took several meetings with the city. We said, look, we're happy to push the buildings up to the front. This is a grocery store. They're not going for it. This is our anchor tenant. This is why we're developing this property. They really did want a fresh market. Not enough that they were like falling all over us and just welcoming us, but they were happy to have this nice fresh market on this vacant property. So it took many, many meetings for us, and we went to fresh market and we said, this is what the city wants. Are you willing to put your building up front? We already knew the answer. It's a grocery store. There's no way. So we said to them, here, I'll go back.
Publix, of course, has worked with you and done that on a couple of your properties.
So we did things like we added more benches up front. We created some nice crosswalks here. We tried to do things that we to convince the city that we were trying to make it more pedestrian friendly. However, I mean, just due to the nature of the tenant, there was no way we could pull it up front. Another thing for me that helped with the negotiations of that is about a mile down the street, I had another project going on in the city of Fort Lauderdale on Federal Highway. I was building a Rooms to Go showroom. So Rooms to Go was subject to the same overlay district, and they happily put their building to, all the way to the front of Federal Highway. So I said, look, I mean, it's not like we don't want to work with you. I've got a project here, we're abiding by all the things, it's a grocery store, they're just simply not going to do it. And then after many meetings, they finally approved our site plan as is, so.
Do you guys do the typical 90-day due diligence for this deal?
That is typical 60 days, 90 days. This one was a little different because we actually we owned the property for many, many years already. So, I mean, I did my typical due diligence.
It said land purchase.
That's right, let's go back to that chart.
Oh, well, we will go back to
that was
that.
the most
Okay.
interesting part of that chart. Thank you, Louise.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
yes,
that's good.
look at that.
Okay, land purchase. Okay, we originally a whole 67 acres was owned by one partnership. So when I say land purchase, what we did is we formed a separate partnership, FG Commercial LLC, Federal Golf Commercial, and separated it from Federal Golf Residential to make a partnership that strictly owns just the 4 acres, so that the project can be aligned with just the 4 acres. And we and it was all the same people, so we just sold it to ourselves at the end of the day. It's really what we did.
So they actually had title to the property because they wouldn't have started construction on that property unless they had some very tight option or other agreement. So
Yes.
basically, it was just a transfer
Mhm.
of property to a different entity by which they were going to create this particular development.
And that is an interesting point that I want to point out, because it's something that was the first time that I had dealt with it. So we actually did have this land purchase while we were already under construction. So we had to do the very tedious task of we had to actually transfer all the contracts into the new name, and we had to stop construction for 1 full day to make sure that there was a transfer of title and there were no liens on the property. We had to take all of the notice to owners and transfer them from the first owner to the second owner. You're shaking your head, maybe you've been through it before.
I had a client that building a luxury condo, and he refinanced, so we had to get all our contracts and final them out and issue new contracts because you can't have any liens, so you got to close out your notice of commencements, and it's.
We closed out all of our notice of commencements, and it really was, I mean, logistically it was, a paperwork nightmare, but also on top of that is you really do technically have to stop construction for 1 day, and it has to be the same day that you close. So, I really did have to tell these guys, already we're on a tight time frame, hurry up, well, blow and go, construct as best you can, but by the way, you have to stop construction for 1 day, you have to tell all your guys to go home and then come back tomorrow. And it was a real challenge for us to do, but we pulled it off. It's done a lot.
But they actually didn't buy the land. They transferred
Yeah, they already owned the land. It was
that
just
parcel to a different entity.
Yes, exactly.
Can I ask you why?
Well, they did that to, you always want to, and I think Mark can speak more, to separate your project and keep it as, I guess, as tight or myopic as you can. I mean, we wanted the commercial portion to be treated as a completely separate project than the residential portion.
I think it's just
Risk
smart
too, I mean.
business here.
Yeah, it lowers the risk, really.
Yeah. And you can pay taxes when you transfer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they are the same owners?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
it's
just
separate.
like
Yeah.
for instance, just like Styles Corporation, every single project that we do is a separate entity, a separate partnership, because
It's
we
most
had.
likely an LLC, correct?
I mean, and
Limited
also
liability corporation.
And similar to what I had said, where our commercial project was, really, the residential portion, that's where the real profits on the project were coming from. So that, you want to be able to see and separate that and see, are your rents supporting the land basis that you're buying the property for? All of your costs to construct the building, what are the profits? Like, we don't want to mix and mingle that with the residential project at all.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, risk, the lawsuits, insurance,
Mhm.
taxes,
Exactly.
and whatever.
Now, in order to do that, you have to have the parcels subdivided, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was already a separate parcel.
Oh, it was
Mhm.
already separate parcel.
Daniela,
Okay, so if you knew, or maybe you didn't know, but as you said that it was a paperwork nightmare doing that transfer
Mhm.
that time that even you had to stop construction for 1 day, why not do that at the beginning?
Well, because you need to get your construction loan. I mean, you need to own the property in order to get your construction loan, so, in order to fund the project. So up to that point, we were self-funding the project. So, I mean, you need to.
Yeah, but I think what he's saying is, if you know you're doing a construction loan and you know it's coming, why not just do it before you put a shovel in the ground, like, you know?
because
Well,
the
that's-
lender wanted to make sure that the property was properly subordinated to their loan. And so therefore, they wanted to make sure that they isolated that particular deal and they carved it out.
No, but they could have done that
Right,
in
well,
the beginning
yeah,
before they put the shovel in the ground.
It's a good
That's
point.
right.
It's, in a perfect world, you always wanna close the day you're gonna put a shovel in the ground. And it takes a lot of coordination. So, you know, for instance, it took longer for the financial services, to negotiate the construction loan. And then, you know, we're kind of getting up to a point where we're saying, you know, you have all these moving parts and you look at your project and you say, well, if we're gonna meet this delivery date, we actually need to get the shovel in the ground now. So, you know, it's just it's a necessary evil in order to keep things going. We couldn't wait until September to start construction. We need to construction
No,
start.
I understand that, but I guess what I'm thinking is, why not, for example, at the same time that you're already looking for the anchor, you're actually working on the LOI, you have a team of lawyers just actually, let's just separate the land right now, and
We were.
was that like an
and-
oversight?
No, it wasn't an oversight, and we were, you have to negotiate like a joint venture agreement with the other partners, which is actually separate than the one you already have, and you're doing all of those moving parts, and yeah, the goal would be to have it all done in time, but by the time you negotiate that, and then you get the lender in place, you know, it dragged out a little bit longer than the date that we needed to start
So
construction.
she teased you a little bit. This schedule is a little bit simplified.
Oh,
There are
yes.
many other steps inside
Mhm.
here. And just like the development chart that I showed you, there are lots of different tasks on the left-hand side there that she hasn't quite shown you,
Right.
that were going on at the same time, that were synchronized, that we're going to
Yeah, because
dealing
then
with.
you're negotiating the construction loan documents with the bank, and that takes several weeks. You know, you're negotiating the joint venture agreement, you're trying to get the government approvals, trying to get the permits, and, you know, in a perfect world, everything starts on one day, but a lot of times it doesn't work out that way.
Can I ask you a silly question?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of program you guys use for Gantt charts and styles?
Oh, you mean we use Microsoft Project for the
Oh,
project
okay.
schedule? This was very simplified. I made this in Excel.
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
we
sure.
had a Microsoft Project schedule that has 956 lines on it.
Sure. This is just a visual sense of what's going on.
And then
Okay,
this is
let's keep moving.
what the
That's right.
city approved site plan looks like, so just to get an idea of what they look like.
Right.
And then, so I think this is some of the site challenges, which I think that we've talked about a little bit, releasing the anchor exclusives, is for just a challenge on, we were very selective on the tenants that we wanted. Then government, another thing I didn't touch on yet, I did talk about the building code changes and the permit delays. We also had some real challenges and delays getting the site plan approval because of the neighborhood opposition to the project. Because they thought that we were going to be generating a lot of traffic due to the grocery store. And we had our traffic consultant that we hired to create a report that said that, you know, it really wouldn't, I think we're talking about the neighborhoods back here and behind the property. And, you know, we showed them that we really weren't going to create a lot of additional traffic because all of it is really on federal highway and that it was within the acceptable thresholds. However, and this is where, again, it's challenging as far as working with other people and trying to convince them. We met with the neighbors, the neighborhood association a couple of times, and they really, because they've been dealing with traffic issues for years and years and years in their neighborhood, and because like the perception was, you know, this property was vacant for a very, very long time, so they were used to that property not generating traffic. And we showed that we actually generated less traffic than from the golf course that was there before. But they really engaged the city, the traffic and mobility department, and sent a lot of letters of opposition to the project, and then essentially sent us a list of demands saying, you know, they knew that we didn't need their approval by code, but they knew that we also needed their approval. You know, they sent letters to the city commissioners and whatnot, and so we implemented all of the. We're getting to that, yeah. We implemented all the things that they asked for, you know, continuous walking path from their neighborhood through the park,
And
you know,
these-
benches, and then they asked us for $75,000, which is not allowed, I mean, it's not.
To do what?
To give to them, to put in their bucket to help them improve and install roundabouts in their neighborhood, and,
Neighborhood beautification.
Oh, they wanted to negotiate, like,
yes,
That's
and,
what
you
it's
know,
all about, they need a
Oh,
shopping
yeah.
center there, they just
Well,
want the money.
folks, do
Yeah,
you know
it is
what, there's another word for that $75,000.
Is that extortion?
There you go, thank you.
well, and sometimes we got to the point where we felt like it was that way, but at the same time, and this is, going back to the timing of everything and getting to closing and starting construction, you know, our approvals were getting delayed, and we could not get the traffic and mobility department to sign off on our site plan approval, which was delaying our project, and so
And
we
you thought that
finally.
perhaps that was the, what was stopping, you know, the pressure from the community?
It was because the pressure from the community, and you know, they work with them on these. So long story
Is
short,
it
we
from
met
the
several
west side
times.
of the golf course?
No, the east side.
It was.
Mhm.
Alright.
And so we ended up agreeing to pay $25,000 just because it was worthwhile for us to pay the $25,000. It would cost us less to pay it than to delay our project another month, really, because.
Who did it get paid to?
We're still working that out, but essentially we're gonna pay it to, I mean,
The Coral Ridge.
we're looking to pay it to the city and have them funnel it into the neighborhood. We
I
don't wanna
got
pay the
absolutely
neighbors
nothing.
directly, the neighborhood directly.
I got nothing in the mail, and I usually get stuff in the mail anytime they're trying to do something like that.
Well,
So, but it's segregated between old and country club estates.
okay, see, this was the Coral Ridge Country Club Estates, and they have a neighborhood magazine where our property, our project was the subject in the magazine for several months. You know, they talked about project updates. And with all that being said, they were still very professional in the way that they were asking, but it was, I mean, the real challenge for us is that it says nowhere in the code, this is not an impact fee, this is not something where is this coming from? Why are you allowed to do it? But
is that
Agreeing
why
up on that side.
the partners waited so long to transfer?
that was one of the
They
challenges.
wanted to make sure
Mhm.
things were okay?
That was one of the things, all of the moving parts. So that was an issue too. And then, you know, obviously it's an old golf course, so this was not part of the
Do
project.
you have a PR department that handles all that stuff in the community, or is it actually you?
We have a peer department, but they do more like press releases and marketing information. No, this was primarily myself, and then also I had the project manager who was working on the residential portion, who you know is a senior manager in our company who's been on the project for 8 to 10 years. He also assisted me, and because he knows who the players are, who the attorneys are. He's already been talking to these people for many years. We didn't know it was coming, but we weren't surprised. So we met with them. Him and I met with the neighborhood associations multiple times. We met with traffic and mobility. We've fielded the correspondence. So we worked on it together. And so depending on the sensitivity and the nature of the project will depend on who handles those kind of things. Like back when I just talked about the MSRED project that we did, I mean, that project was so big and so sensitive that actually the president of our company and sometimes our CEO would handle those kind of things. Whereas if it was a smaller issue, then the day-to-day development managers would handle it. So.
Did you have to deal with Oakland Park at all and the traffic?
Not at all, because and I had another project that was on the border of Hollywood and Dania Beach. I guess the beauty of it is that it's not in their neighborhood. It's not in their jurisdiction. They don't, we only need approvals from the city of Fort Lauderdale.
I wasn't sure if they would have rose a stump for 38.
Nope. I mean, not to say we aren't sensitive to anything that impacts them. Like we worked a lot with on another project with Dania Beach, even though the project was in Hollywood. So, Now, I had said before, this wasn't something that I was involved with particularly because the site was handed to me this way, but you know, it's an old golf course. There were some contamination issues with the soil. The soil was remediated by the residential developer, and then I was handed a clean site to do my development on. And then going back to like due diligence, so what did I do? I went and then in turn did environmental tests on the property as if I was purchasing it from someone else, you know, so, but there was remediation that had to.
When you guys do the soil test, do you hire a soil engineer or a geotechnical engineer?
Yes, we do. We hire, we work with a firm. They will do geotechnical testing, environmental testing. If there's an existing building, you know, we'll do asbestos testing.
Did you actually have to do a phase 1 or had it already been done?
One had already been done.
Right, but then you still back checked it?
Yeah, and
essentially?
then I hired that company to do like kind of like the same company to do like a review, like an update letter saying, you know, everything's all right with the site. Because the thing is when you're negotiating with an anchor tenant, you're obligated to provide them those reports to say that you have, you know, a clean site. So, you know, we're getting it for us as ownership, and then we also get it for.
And they don't request to have an independent company, not the same company that did the previous tests, you know.
It depends. In this instance, we ended up using that company, but it depends. Sometimes we would hire somebody separate. Like I'm working on a site now where we have the seller provide us reports, we get different, you know, we hire different.
That's part of the negotiation with the tenant, or is that something that?
No, that's up to the ownership group.
Can I ask you, how much money you guys spend on the attorney and professional?
She's going to get to the
fees?
numbers. in
Okay,
just a
okay.
bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just have like I actually just only have like a general overall cost. I can tell you that the project was about a little over 14 million. We spent 6.3 on the land, and then we spent about 5 million on the construction. So then we spent 3 in between all those other items. And so as far as the attorneys, I had a budget of $100,000, and I used it.
For attorneys, I'm professional too.
No, not
How
for
much
the
do you have?
professional
How many
technical.
times
Wrong
to make
step.
sure that,
Now, like when I say that for the attorneys, that includes the purchase of the property, that includes in all the lease negotiations. So, another interesting challenge that we've had with this particular project is the way that the Fresh Market outlines the work is that they split it into 4 phases for the landlord's work. So we have to deliver, you know, the shell and some other things for phase 1, and then we have a phase 2, a phase 3, and a phase 4. And after phase 1, the tenant will come in and they start doing their tenant build out. So you have months where, and this is the second Fresh Market I've done, where you have the landlord's work and the tenant's work going on at the same time. And that's a real challenge. Because you have 2 different contractors, you have to get the city to sort of approve that because you make sure that that's okay from a life safety perspective. And then it prevents schedule challenges because everybody's in a rush, everybody wants to get their own work done. You know, you are constantly feeling, well, you know, this guy's in my way, you know, how come you didn't get this done in time? Well, this guy's in my way, I can't get this done, and it's, you know, you want them to work together, and sometimes because of the layout of the work, it can be a real challenge to get a lot of things done. We had big challenges with the way things were split up with the fire alarm work being done, and you know, getting inspections. The city would only allow, you know, one contractor to call in the inspections, so then one had to call in the inspections for the other, and it presented its own difficulties during construction. So.
Did you do the one on Federal South?
No, I did the one on Federal in Delray Beach, on Linton and US 1.
So that's a great question. How many other Fresh Markets have you worked on?
That was my second one.
That was your second one, so you've already had
Did you work on one before?
experience.
No, you said 2 before, so.
Oh.
No, but I think that's important to note. So Stiles and Jessica already have a relationship with Fresh Market, which I'm going to suggest facilitated and smoothed the ability to get this done.
It
and
did.
that was really important because when you start new with any lessee, it's going to be a challenge just to get up and running and make it work well.
So here's just a little snapshot. The total cost of the project was $14.2 million. We leveraged got our lenders 75% of the project, $10.5 million construction loan, 3.7 equity. So, you know, our total project cost be a little over 14.2, and our NOI was a little over $1 million with a development cash on cash return of 7.04%.
So let's talk about those numbers. Interesting, when you think about the cost of the land, and the ratio of the land costs in this deal, high, low, what were your expectations in light of this?
I thought it was a little bit high at first, except I can tell you that the Rooms to Go project that I did a mile down the street was a slightly smaller parcel, and we paid just about the same for the land. So that was
The
a
land
big,
was what, 5 again?
the land here was 6.3.
6.3, excuse me.
Mhm.
Okay.
So to me, it showed me that that really is the market rate for land in that area.
Interesting, wow,
Mhm.
how interesting is that?
And then we, you know, I did a projected value because we still own the property. We're not all the way done with everything right
Yeah.
now. We actually, you know, don't really, you never know what's gonna happen, but right now I can say, I don't think we have plans to sell it right now. But, you know, we anticipated we'd have a blended cap rate of about 6%, so a market value of about 16.5. And when I say blended cap rate, the way we calculate, we use a different cap rate for the center and then a different cap rate for the out parcel. So, and then we sort of do a weighted
Right.
average.
And-
What's the out parcel?
That's the SunTrust
That's
Bank
SunTrust
building.
across the
It's
street.
it's right over here.
Right, right.
I mean, in that deal, did the GC did the TIs for all the tenants? Or it
well,
hired someone?
No, what we did is we had the restaurant here negotiated, and we have a nail salon over there negotiated. So since the GC was already on site, I had them do the landlord's work. So it was, fortunately, we were in a position where I just had the architect, redraw the landlord's work, and I submitted a permit revision and got them, the GC, to do the work while they were still there on site. Now the other two spaces that are available, we delivered them in what we call a vanilla box. So it's just, has, the walls, AC, but it's just a plain space. And then when we do lease those, if there's any work to be done, that's when I hire the tenant improvement coordinator, and he will coordinate if there's any landlord work changes to be done or make sure the tenant gets their work.
And that's a different guy.
That's a different guy.
And last question, during the construction phase, there was someone in your team that was going to check the site like 3 times a week?
Yes, that was myself.
And do the pay apps and?
That was myself, yeah. I'll approve the pay apps, I'll approve the construction loan draw, make sure that we are submitting everything to the lender. Now, one of the things the lender does is when we submit a pay app and a loan draw to them, they send an independent inspector out to make sure that what we're asking to get paid, that we've actually done the work. But me, as the owner's rep, I would make sure that everything was getting done, on my side for the owner.
Is that with the on-site contractor, or is that with Styles?
Styles Construction did it.
Do you guys, do you have a certain agreement you use? Was it like lump sum, or was it the open book?
This one was GMP.
So you got to see their numbers.
Yeah, and then, we had a split savings, and, they had the benefit of, the buyout if they got any, then we had a split savings at the end, so.
Just looking at this chart here, is it, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but is it typical that the projected cost to finance the project would be the exact amount that you all spent, or am I seeing those, am I not looking at that?
These are the exact costs, yeah.
So that's 14,269, 580, and then,
So then what we do is we'll have the projected value, which is based on the cap rate. So this is what we think it would be able to sell for. So this is all a projection. Less the project costs right here, and then less what we call the cost of sale. And there's some other small anomalies, like we take out of the, we deduct some replacement costs and things like that. But then this is what we would project would be the proceeds on the project if we were to sell it today. In a year, the cap rates may change, so we don't.
Just to be sure,
the
you,
projected cost was 14,269, and then the actual cost was also.
No, that's the project cost.
Project cost,
cost.
yeah, not projected,
no.
Cost for the
project cost.
project.
So this is what it is, and I think this might be a little bit off. I think you really meant 25, 75.
You're right,
That's
you're absolutely right.
So this is what seems to be the numbers right now. It's still
Real
not
cost.
quite here, and then she's guesstimating here. So this 6%, she's looking at what's the market. So for example, if you went onto your CoStar, or look at some of your estimates in the market, you say, I think I can sell this income stream at about a 6%. Now right now, this 7% is just based upon the cost. But so maybe you can get a 6% return. So investors may say, I hope you don't mind me doing
No, go ahead, yeah.
So the investors would say, gee, maybe I'll pay 6% to get that. And so then she says, oh, then that means they'll buy it from me for 16.5. Now then she says, oh, how much did I pay to build this? She takes that 14.2 and says, okay, I spent 14.2, and then, oh, by the way, when they paid me this, I had to pay brokers, attorneys, and others to close on the deal this much, and this is what I netted for Styles at the end of the day. Are you with me? And so that goes back to what Dr. Forgy was telling us with our analysis last week. You can actually put these numbers into kind of that SFFA.
Which is a little different because when we did the last case study, we had just sold that property, so the numbers
That's
were
right.
actual.
So this
where
is just the way,
more-
and so when you do your major study project, when I show you your you're going to take a guess. So in fact, if you were out there right now, if this was a project right now that Styles was going to put onto the marketplace, you would be actually guessing at these numbers. And they would say, okay, we have a project to sell. In fact, Styles could put these numbers out there for you, this part. And then they'd say, all right, they're not going to show you these numbers. Come to us, and you're going to do your calculation on these numbers. And Styles would say, how much do you want to pay? And then Styles would figure out, after you told them this number, what their return was here.
Your return on investment was about 27% on the equity?
If you
Wow.
sell it for that.
Right.
Well, yeah, so this is how much they put into the deal.
Okay.
Do you usually have like we want to make this much return on our equity as a goal or as a parameter?
They do have goals and parameters, and then of course each individual, the individual partners would or not. So say they'll shop it to partners and they'll say, this it doesn't meet my goals or this doesn't. So.
Do you guys have major change orders in the construction or
We
minor?
had some change orders, but I have to say, I'm glad we didn't have anything too major. I have had other projects that had, some real surprises that happened during construction. This one, we had change orders, but we actually, they weren't.
What was complicated during the construction of these projects?
This one, again, it was a lot of the coordination with the tenant, working over the tenant. Also, again, the same thing with what I was saying about the government approvals. We submitted for a permit revision, simple permit revision for this restaurant that it took us 4 months to get it approved, so that in turn put us behind schedule on the retail projects. So I actually, because of that, ended up paying some extended general conditions on the project, which was a big change order.
I mean, she had contingency already in the
Yeah,
budget.
we put a certain percentage. I have, we have, this one I think had 3% contingency.
So with the land, because you said it was $6 million, right? But you guys owned it already? Or did you refinance because you're at 3.7?
Yeah, we're just looking at that equity number there and.
Right.
And
So-
debt versus equity versus land versus something, so we just kinda.
So her land number
The land
is
number.
in that 14.2.
It is.
Right,
But it's a component of the debt, right? Because
Yes,
if not-
exactly.
But since you owned it before, right, previous to this
We-
project, you restructured it?
Yeah,
or-
they
But
just,
it's
we
on
sold it
plan.
to ourselves.
That's right.
I mean, we sold it to ourselves.
The, when we were doing the CoStar, we didn't obviously have the leasing numbers for the fresh market, and I think we found that like maybe around it was like $22.
Like 2170 was the market rate.
Like obviously that NOI is not that, because when you multiply the leasable square footage times that rate, it gives you maybe a fraction of that, so.
No, well, and again, the NOI also includes the ground lease.
Okay, so the NOI is not specific to this
This
parcel, but it
includes
also
the
It
includes.
includes the out parcel, so that includes, you have the 21,000
Yeah,
square
that came
foot
up with like
for fresh market.
600 something thousand just for this, but yeah, let's only look at this one portion here and not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you have the fresh market, the anchor, the 21,000 square feet, and then you have what the bank is
Forward
paying for the ground lease, and then the 4 retail shops.
Interesting. And you know, part of the challenge is interesting. So CoStar is a little bit behind. I mean, this is a center that's just opened up, and their data is trying to catch up to what's going on. And if the leases aren't all in place and all that, they're, you know, calling up, and so then you've got to do some real boots on the ground research there.
Now-
Make an intelligent guess.
Is your plan to sell this?
No, not
As of right
necessarily.
now, to my knowledge, we don't have one, but you never know market, I mean, conditions. The last project that I worked on that I had a case study in here for,
The
we
West
got
Side
it,
Commons?
we
Yeah.
got an unsolicited offer that was, I mean, really just.
Couldn't turn it down.
We couldn't turn it down, and you know what was interesting about it is that, Publix had a right of first refusal, and so we had to present it to them, and they accepted it and they bought it at that price. So we weren't planning to sell that either, but, you know, something happened.
That's
and
fresh
they-
market, first refusal on their deal.
I think that they do.
Just curious.
But I think it's, but not if we sell the out parcel. So, you know, it's if we sell their
Their
portion,
portion,
not
that's
if we
interesting.
wanna go, we can
Because
sell the out
Publix
parcel.
really looks
What,
at all of their parcels, right?
What lease terms are these big grocery market tenants typically like? Are they locked in for 5, 10, 15?
I can tell you,
20 years?
we did a 12-year lease with
That's weird.
options. We thought it was odd, but it's a smaller store, like the Publix I did, that was a 20-year lease.
And
so.
how many, I guess, extensions would you have?
They have more, I think up to six
Six.
extensions.
Options, you mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a question about it's a little bit outside, but what was the decision to make that a parcel of land adjacent to the fresh market and the residential portion to make it into a park?
That was
The city?
I wanna say it was a requirement of the city. That was one where, you know, that was part of the residential project, so I didn't work on the specific details, but I do think it was a requirement of the city, and it was a negotiation with them to bring, like, you know, a nice, it complemented the project, and it was, I think it's, don't hold me, I think it started off as a ground lease or like a land lease to the city, but then I think we ended up just conveying the property.
Could it be to make the ratios for the homes that they need less?
To meet open space requirements. It could have been.
Because I'm dealing with them with stupid trees, and,
In the city of Fort Lauderdale?
yeah.
You know, they are, and most cities
They're
are like
crazy
this, you
with
know,
their
you know, the cities are passionate about their landscaping, they want this, you know, their spaces to look very nice. I've had more difficulties in other cities, but, I think primarily because what had happened was the guy who did the residential portion had negotiated already a lot of the tree replacements and just handed me a clear site. So we did, you know, we had to meet a lot of these perimeter requirements, where they wanted the shade trees, they want, you know, trees that aren't going to have like branches falling on people that are walking by, and, but yeah, the cities they really care about that.
How long has Styles been in business?
Since 1960, I believe.
So about 50 years.
Mhm.
And
We just celebrated 60 years, so since
60.
1956, thank you.
okay,
Mhm.
so and the way they have grown has been organic in the sense of just, well, let's just go and do this and hire people, or just buying little companies, like buying an architectural company, bringing it in, or
We haven't really bought any other companies and brought them in. They've grown organically, you know, they started off, and actually, Terry South's father started off as a general contractor, and Terry's real, background is in construction, and then he started developing, things in the, mid-80s, and he did the Sawgrass Park, Business Park, that was a big one, some stuff like near Cypress Creek. And then, you know, in the early 90s, did a lot of the downtown buildings.
Do you know where he's moving? You said his son's taking over.
Oh, he's just, you know, he's retiring, he won't be gone, you know.
Well, I know
but
he's selling his house right now. It went on like a couple days ago, I think.
I don't know, I think he's building another one around here. I mean, he's not moving by any way, but it's just part of our transition plan. We had, now Terry and Doug Egan, who was our president, they have been working together for 35 years, and both of them are reaching retirement age. So our succession plan includes, we had Doug Egan's replacement, who is Scott McLaren. He's been with us for 15 years. He started off as a financial analyst, actually, and now he's, worked his way up. He's taking over as president of the company. So this year, they just did his transition, and then Doug is transitioning out. And then next year is when Terry will do his transition and transfer everything over to Kenny. I think right now they're doing a co-CEO, so that, so it's really part of our succession plan to make sure everything is seamless and smooth, so it's, a little bit at a time and, slow, so that when it's really, Terry's really ready to retire, then everybody else is, in place and everything's running smoothly, so.
Who was the GC for these?
Styles. Mhm.
Styles?
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Why don't we give Jessica a great round of applause? A really wonderful case study, and it saved me the trouble of having to do my case study after this. Because she just explained everything, and of course, go Sharks.
What is your question?
Well, I have questions, but they're mostly just for you specifically, just like from a career.
Yeah, you can, I don't think I'm sorry, I brought any cards, but you can send out my contact information.
I
if
sure
you
will,
like. Mhm.
definitely. So see how NSU can prepare you for a great career, and Jessica's a sterling example of how you can take the knowledge here and really run with it.
No, it is. I mean, everything that I learned in the program was very specific to what, and I learned a lot on the job, but it really was, I went to school in this program so I could learn to be a developer, and now that is, the work that I'm doing.
Did you do that before you came here, or was it basically you came here and then you found that job?
Well, my career was always in real estate in some form or fashion. I worked on, when I first graduated college, selling condominiums. I actually was living in New Orleans at the time. I was doing that for apartment conversions in the warehouse district. And then when I moved here, I worked in condominium hotels as an owner's rep, and I managed major hotel renovations. And then I did that while I was going to school, and then I got this job here.
And your position now is project manager?
Yeah, development manager.
Okay.
What did you start as when you got to start? Like, have you been promoted since you've been there? Did you always start out in the position that you have now?
Well, I started in the position that I am now, except my first project at Westlake Commons, I really, I did all the legwork, but it was really under the guidance of my boss, who was the head of our development group. And then once that one was done, then I had subsequent projects where I was able to really, run them on my own and manage them on my own. And now at this point, one of the things, I'm still can work on retail projects, but at this point I'm learning, we have some office projects in the pipeline. So now, I'm working under a senior manager to really learn how to do, high-rise office products, multi-stories, so that it can become more
So
diversified.
who you working for, Bob?
That's where I'm working with a gentleman named Jeff. He has a couple of, he's getting closer to retirement age. He has a couple of big office
So not Jeff
projects.
McDonald.
Not Jeff McDonough, different Jeff.
Okay.
We have a lot of Jeffs, we have a lot of
Jeffs.
Davids.
Getting
Yeah.
of the
How
Jeffs,
many
okay.
people are employed there?
We have about 300 employees.
So it's a
Now,
good
a lot of
mid-sized
them
firm.
are, in construction, because that's really our bread and butter. That's really what we do. The development group is very small.
And that's where the brains and the guts and the opportunity,
How many
the
people
creative
are in
side is.
development?
Well, overall, we have about 12, and that includes, there's 4 in the residential group, and then there's 4 of us in the commercial group, and then we have some support staff, and then the tenant improvement guys fall under the development.
That's pretty small.
Mhm. But that's because, we really do, for the projects that, Terry's developing on his own, we do the development work. So if you really think about it, we all have multiple projects at one time, but, a lot of third-party stuff we don't really get involved.
So you haven't, Ben and I were having this conversation yesterday, you haven't really been through the down cycle so much. I was gonna say, where do they trim the fat first, the construction side? Because I was actually with the Graham companies not too long ago, and he's like, yeah, we're a family company, 500, we don't have GCs because, we had to trim the fat, and I don't wanna fire the people.
Well, a couple of things. I can say that, it's known within our company that, we went through the downturn. I think one of the things that they had done is we actually used to have a landscape division, and they sold that off when the times were not good. And then, I don't want to know necessarily where do they trim the fat. They did a lot of layoffs. I don't know how they made those decisions, but I do know that it was, you know, Terry will always say when he's speaking in public that it was the third-party work that kind of kept us through and kept us alive because there was no development. Our internal development team was really, you know, they were working on trying to reposition all of the, you know, these things that we own, these opportunities, these things I say the site plan changed so many times, and it was the outside fees that we brought in that really like kept, you know, people always say that's what kept the company afloat during that time. So, you know, that's why it's important for us to be diversified and, you know, have all of those divisions.
I have a question for Professor Bertrand. What percentage of people in the program, not now, but historically, actually come here because of entrepreneurial ambitions versus looking for a career within a development company or?
I don't know the answer, we'll have to ask the doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
I think most people are, but I think most people have a goal of doing just what Jessica's done.
Yeah, I can tell you that because I chaired for quite some time the Alumni Association, and you know, we have our graduates do like a myriad of different things, and again, a lot of them graduated during the downturn, and they, you know, they wanted to go into development, but the opportunities weren't there, so we have a lot to work in: lending, leasing, brokerage, you know, a lot of startup, you know, lead to startup as a financial analyst. We have quite a few that are, you know, in the construction industry, have their own GC, and just, you know, want to learn to do like smaller projects on their own, and you know, a lot that do work in development like myself. And I do think that one of the things that is really great about this program is that it doesn't teach you to do just one job. You can go out and do so many different things. I think it was about a year ago we had a panel where we brought in people, graduates from the program that have all different types did all different types of career paths, and to show that, hey, you know, there's so many things you can do with this degree.
That's the beauty of it, it's diversified. Okay, great.
Okay, great. Well,
I still have some stuff, but I want to finish up with you all guys, so thank you, Jessica.
Okay,
That was
thank you so
super.
much.
Yeah,
And
thank you very much.
enjoy.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
So there's good news here. The good news is that you took your exam first, because if we had gone this far, you would have only had 15 minutes to take your test.
We could have done it next week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would have been a good move.
And the good one.
That would have been a good move.
No, I'm
What's the
ready
bad
to get
news?
this thing out of the way.
Usually you do good news and then bad news. Okay, the bad news.
We do. Can we have a small 3-second break? Ian?
Yeah, I was talking to Stuart Wiley from the Graham Companies, and I was actually with him when he got the comprehensive plan back for the Super Dream Mall down in Miami Lakes, American Super Dream.
Yes, by the Gymnasium family?
They're the people purchasing the land, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah. So no, they owned the land prior, but he was saying that they got rid of the construction arm because during the downturn it just caused so much internal conflict because they were laying people off, and it was quote unquote, you know, a family business, and they said it was worth paying the premium for the contractor versus the internal
Sure it was.
nonsense that went on after.
Sure it was.
Do you find most developers do that? They hire out, or
It all depends. It truly does. So 3 of you are missing, 2 of you are missing.
Coffee, man.
So
yeah, it's going right through me.
3 of you are now missing.
Sorry about that. It's just stuff that like every day.
So I have a case study that I'd like to present. And this is not that case study. Let me put something else up, actually. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess we're going to do with 6. Didn't know it. All right, so I do want you to do your group presentations, but we have about 15 minutes left. And so I'm making another executive decision, which I make lots of them every day. And but I feel it's more important to make sure I get you started actually on getting set up for your project. Now I put this up before. You have this. I want to remind you of what it is. So I've chosen a deal which I want your teams to work on. And you'll see it in a minute. So I'm refreshing you on what it is. You are going to do your presentation, and it will be next week. Next week, by the way, we have a site tour of the SunWest Commerce Center. It's an industrial office complex, which is here in somewhere in Broward County. We'll have to figure out the timing. I'm going to have to email you on that. And you'll be reading, I'll give you your chapters and whatever. But I want to make sure you get started and sit in. So remember, what you need to do is, in effect, put the deal together. Now, what Jessica did, in fact, was a great case study, and she told you about style, but you can see all the issues that were there. But remember, you're going to do a detailed report, a structured presentation, different. You're going to write a project report. You're going to do a PowerPoint. You're going to do all these items. One thing that's really important, of course, is understanding the SWOT, doing the financial. In fact, she did what looked like a back of the envelope. You can take the information, you're going to expand upon that, the concept plan. So all of this is just a refresher for the kind of detailed analysis that I want you to go into. You've got now the kind of initial information. I'm going to fill you out with some of that next week again, all these kinds of things. So you've seen this before. This is nothing new. So I just wanted to refresh your memory on it. And so you got the data. And so I have chosen a project which I think would be worth the two groups working on. And I think it's put up this full screen. So there is a deal which has just come to market, and I will confirm it with the broker because I've gotten the confidentiality agreement signed. Pretty sure I can get this signed. So there's this 2.46 acre site in Wynwood, in Miami. Anybody been to Wynwood? Miami? Some of you have. Okay. Which is being marketed by Cushman & Wakefield. My colleague Troy Ballard is doing that. I'm going to call him up, and I just got this actually a couple days ago, and I thought this would be great for your teams to do it. Basically, it's a mixed-use site, and it's right there. The seller actually owns adjacent site, but you're only looking at the 2.46 acres here. And so this is like a 4-page flyer. I'll send out the flyer. Okay, but there's 180 megabytes of information that you can download. But I'll check to make sure that you can download it. I mean, I signed the confidentiality.
And the property has a street in the middle?
Let me show you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the property is the subject, and Northwest 29th and Northwest 2nd. And basically, it's 2.46 acres, a mixed-use opportunity, which has the ability to build, and they already lay out a lot of the information. You don't have to start from scratch, all right? And units, 368 units, gross square footage, you could put retail, a variety of different uses. The goal here is for you to figure out what really should be on it and to come up with some value as if you would purchase it, right? And understand what are the factors behind it. And so you're in effect going to be making a recommendation to the client. We'll call it me, and we'll have a couple of others here who will hopefully review your presentations and your project. Now, they've complicated things a little bit. I'm going to look at this more clearly. It's nice to know that the additional seller-owned property next door could make this even bigger and better. We don't really care about
I
that.
don't think anybody uses the word hipster anymore.
Pardon?
I don't think anybody even uses the word hipster
They
anymore,
do.
other than Forbes.
They do because they're much older than the hipsters.
And because
Okay.
it's marketable. I mean, it's very marketable in Williamsport, Brooklyn.
Remember, it's Forbes. And Malcolm Forbes is dead, and his son runs the magazine, and his son's now 70 years old or something. Or whatever. All we care about is the actual subject property. But it's a marketing piece. Come on, guys and gal. Okay? And so, but you know, I'll send this to you. It's kind of interesting. So this is just the kind of thing. So imagine that, remember when our team got the North Lake Promenade shops up in Palm Beach County, we got a flyer like this. Then we signed the comfy, and then we downloaded a couple hundred megabytes of information, and we went to work. So this is a real life deal. And you're just going to look at it in your own way. But our criteria, once again, I mean, you're not going to actually submit a bid, but you're going to at least use the outline that I've provided you to help dig into understanding the property. And okay, by the way, I will let you know that they then provided an offering memorandum, which is, there's lots of information out there. As I said, there's 180 megabytes of info, and you know, it's cute, it's sexy with all the pictures and everything. Okay, that's fine. And yes, they've got market and other information.
I like that.
And, it's really cool. But they've got lots of information, but it's your job to figure out whether it's accurate, worthwhile. They have comps and stuff, but I don't know if it's valid. I mean, do I care about this information? I don't know. And so that's where hopefully some of the things that you're reading, some of the things that I'm telling you about will hopefully help you evaluate this. Okay? So I think this is kind of an interesting major study project to have. And I picked a cool hipster project, or whatever you want to call it,
Such a hipster.
for you all to work on, okay? But it's a real project. That's what I like to do. I do this every semester. I find the project that looks like it's real. As I said, I'll call Troy Ballard and say, hey, Troy, this is the real thing. I'm going to download it. I mean, I've downloaded it, and my students are working. You don't actually have to call the brokers. Actually, there's no need. I don't want you calling the brokers. You have no business calling the brokers. You're really just doing this as an assignment there, okay? So, I just wanted to make sure you were alert to that. Okay, so you are all going to present at some point to me. But I hope you enjoyed taking the test. The truth is, nobody likes taking it, but these are the kinds of things that ultimately it becomes second nature to you. And I'm sure, and you know, some of you may have struggled with it, but you know, we'll go through it next week. We'll go through it line by line. It should be second nature, what the square footage, you know, how many square feet are in an acre, what ratios are, things like that. When Jessica put up her numbers there, that was really simple financial feasibility analysis, you know, that kind of thing. Just a little bit of what cap rates were. So those, forget all that stuff there. So those are the things that will hopefully you'll become familiar. What are you looking at?
Sorry, instead of looking at the zoning, I'm trying to get ideas.
Okay, I'll send you that, okay? So I thought she did great, frankly. It was really a good intro, and you were asking good questions, everybody. These are the kinds of things you want to know about, and maybe one day you'll be ready to.
When is this major project due?
Pardon?
When is this major project
The
due?
last class.
The last class
class, okay.
is when you are going to present.
Okay.
Which is in about 3-4 weeks, right?
Well, you know, this is class number 4.
Okay, so we'll have 3 more?
5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6,
2 months.
7, 8. We've got 4 weeks. But you know what? In the real world, we had 3 or 4 weeks to do our thing. And you don't have the pressure of actually finding the money and the financing to actually get it done. And, oh gosh, yeah, it's easy, puppy. Right?
Actually,
But the reason why I do it is it's because it just shows you what you gotta get to.
I have a question from the book. Why
A question from the book.
Yeah, why are big box stores called category killers?
Category killers, that's a great question. I know we didn't get, I have a whole case study which I'll get to next week about that too, which we will. Category killers, so for example, Toys R Us is a category killer. And what, anybody want to guess what a category killer is?
It kills all other toy stores.
That's right. Walmart is a
It's
category
like, why
killer.
would I go there when I can just go to Toys R Us and have everything that I need?
And
So it
ultimately
kills
Amazon
stores
will
and
kill
that.
every
And
category.
you don't wanna be by a category.
But why do they call it,
Because there's so much option and variety that the consumer
That's
tends
right.
to go there
So-
instead of
so-
somewhere else.
So basically, we're finding that there are one or two chains or brands within a category.
what I thought that it was that, for example, you had the department store, that old department store that had a bunch of, including a toy department. And when you bring this, it basically, it kills all the categories because you only have one category, and that's just toys.
Yeah.
Deep down, all the way
So-
down.
So you, most likely, most people don't really go to Macy's anymore and buy the toys at Macy's, even though they go take their kids to see Santa.
Right.
They probably, and even now, they don't really even anymore, they would go to Toys R Us, and then they can see every toy, and then what they do is they go to Toys R Us, and they look at the toy, and
buy
then
it
they run
online.
back to Amazon and buy it online.
Yeah.
So everything is up for grabs. It's just a total discombobulation in the retail space.
I got the idea or the impression that probably out of all the product types, probably retail and shopping centers is probably one of the most difficult.
Retail is in total disarray. And you'll see that, there's a category of retail called dead malls.
Right.
But that's not a category killer.
Fashion mall?
Yeah. Well, it's been dead for many years, and they
Right.
can't
What,
figure out how to
that's
make it
I'm
live.
saying,
and whatever.
I'm thinking that you have to have some, it's not just the construction, you gotta have the right tenant, the right anchor.
Yes, and part of the challenge is that it's not flexible enough to convert, change, reconfigure. And so, actually, a little center like this Fresh Market, that looks like something that, even if Fresh Market goes out in 12 years, it probably looks like space. I haven't been there, actually, I'm thinking,
And
driving by it,
it's
when I
nice.
go back to Sept, you can probably
Shove it
subdivide
up
and
and-
create inline or other stores. Or it's small enough, frankly, they can probably just raise the thing and put something else on there. that
Oh,
later bring
by
down.
the way, inline means all the.
Inline means the smaller stores
Smaller
that are
stores.
adjacent to the anchor in there. You mean Rick didn't write about that in chapter 7?
What?
He did, it's just, he mentioned it.
Yeah, he did.
I
He did.
just didn't
Yes,
know what it was.
Daniel.
Well, the good thing about a Fresh Market is that it works, functions both as a,
Commodity and
it's a commodity and discretionary shopping center. Because it's on the high end of a grocery store, and it specializes with the.
But it also has an interesting, so it has an appeal to both ends of
A
the
hybrid.
shopping structure. It's a hybrid. Yes.
What type of mall is the one that Jim Carizo built in California? Is that a lifestyle mall? Have you seen it before?
Which mall is this?
He built 2 in California, and they are pretty successful. I think one of the most successful in the country. Jim Carizo is the name of the developer.
You mean the Gymnasiums? Are you talking about the American Mall? I'm sorry, which one?
Yeah, I think it's American.
That's what he's talking about.
California.
You
But-
mean
but
the
they're-
American Dream Mall?
It's gonna be here.
Dream Mall. I think
It's gonna be here, in Miami Lakes.
No, but this one was built in California by Jim Carizo. Are you familiar with that developer or not?
I'm not sure who you're talking about. Maybe it's just my inability to understand what you're saying.
No, I'm
I'm
saying,
not getting
what type of malls are, I'm gonna have to show you this.
You'll have to show me. Sorry. All right. So I will
Super
email
Mall.
you the. Make sure that you have your reading, because next week it will be either chapter 3 or 4. I don't remember what it is. I'll make sure we have our timing right for our guests, because I don't know. I think we still will assemble here to visit there. We will at some point get you to present.
Where are we visiting?
Huh?
Where are we going?
We're gonna
Come
hear,
here first. I'm pretty
And
sure.
then where are we going?
And the site tour will be Sunwest Commerce Center, off of I-75 or I-575, I forgot.
When do we get to know like how we've been doing on these assignments so far, grading wise?
Well, if I can ever get you up to present, number one, and then, yes, some of you have presented, and for those
We
of you
did
who
the
have not,
developer, we did the co-star.
thank you for submitting, and some of you who haven't need to submit, and then I can at least, grade you by my usual check plus, check, or check minus, and then you'll know how you do. So, but participation is an important part, and so for everybody who did participate and speak today, that was very good. And you can see you learned a lot by your questions. So what are you looking at here? And I'll give you Drew, don't worry.
I couldn't find the guy's name. Probably available in some form.
I don't know why you guys couldn't
I'm gonna call them right now and
He
see.
went to Europe,
But
but
I told you.
he brought that to the US.
Sent that email first that you had.
Have you ever had that family
But I know you have G. Caruso.
Yeah, I told Google, and what happened was that inside my organization, because I have that with my company.
I think that